royal weddings continue to dominate the media, from the fashion to the star-studded attendees to the newborn royal babies. But the idea of the fairy tale marriage can often only last so long before the cracks begin to show. In actuality, the history of royal engagements is filled with tales of heartbreak and anguish. Just like the rest of us, they too endure tests in their marriage, sometimes bringing them closer together and, at other times, pushing them further apart. 1992, the year which the Queen herself described as an annus horribillis, goes down in history as a tragic period in time for the royals.
Indeed, I suspect that there are very few people or institutions unaffected by these last months of worldwide turmoil and uncertainty.
Castle fires and dramatic divorces tainted Her Royal Highness's pristine family image. Prince Andrew, Duke of York, the third child and second son of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, had a somewhat complicated romantic life.
That had absolutely not the slightest effect.
Prior to meeting Sarah Ferguson, the woman he would later go on to marry, Andrew engaged in a short-lived relationship with American-born actress Capt. Stark seemed to be the perfect match for the Duke of York after the pair was set up for a blind date, and she charmed the Queen when they had tea together. But when it was revealed that she had appeared topless in an art house film in the late 1970s, the pressure on the couple became overwhelming, forcing them to split.
For celebrity watchers, this was the glorious 10th. Even the royal family had sent a special team along to take part in this shootout in aid of charity. Mark Phillips led the royals into battle, and with Princess Anne watching him, he proved as skilled with a gun as he is with a horse. Among the Mark's men, His Royal Highness Prince Andrew, who confessed that he was a novice at clay pigeon shooting and then went on to knock down everything that came into his sights.
Oh, yes!
And despite his obvious prowess, the Prince modestly turned aside all compliments.
I have virtually no experience at this, so I have no tips at all, really.
How are you hoping to do today?
As well as I can. About as well as I suppose I get half at least. I shall try anyway. If at first you don't succeed, try again, they say.
But just like his elder sister, Andrew was persistent when it came to finding love. And it wasn't long before he was introduced to the woman he would fall in love with. Reportedly, the late Princess Diana played an instrumental role in setting Andrew up with Sarah. Sarah Ferguson, the daughter of Major Ronald Ferguson, Prince Charles's polo manager, was one of Diana's childhood friends. Diana and Sarah reconnected in 1980, and with similar interests and social circles, they became quite close. With the recommendation from Diana, 26-year-old Sarah was invited to an event at Windsor Castle during Royal Ascot in 1985. It was there Sarah and Andrew connected for the first time as adults, but it wasn't the first time they had crossed paths. Reportedly, the pair had met as children and even played tag together on a polo field. Diana encouraged Sarah and Andrew's romance, inviting the couple to her country house Highgrove for a visit before their relationship became public. Their romance moved quickly, and soon Sarah was welcomed into the royal fold. Sarah and the Queen bonded early over a shared love of horses. Thanks to her father's career, Sarah was raised around animals and was no stranger to a private ride with the Queen. She also won over Prince Philip with her sharp sense of humour and interest in Philip's favourite pastime, open carriage driving. Sarah also had a career before her royal life. She worked at an art gallery in public relations and then at a publishing house. Prince Andrew proposed to Sarah on February the 19th, 1986, his 26th birthday. The prince popped the question at Flaws Castle in Scotland, which was reportedly the spot where the couple shared their first kiss. They announced their engagement publicly on March the 19th, 1986, with a photo session held at Buckingham Palace.
says please keep off the grass, so mind where you walk. And also mind out for the dog messes, which are also around.
Oh, heels!
Why not?
Picture?
Why
Yeah.
not? A little one then. No, this way, sir. Oh, you missed this.
Okay, quick, sir.
Let's go for it. Once more for look, sir. Hold on, sir. Once is quite enough.
You got it then.
On July the 23rd, 1986, Prince Andrew and Sarah married in a grand royal wedding held at Westminster Abbey in London.
Is there just somewhere inside you a certain sadness in a way that you've been taken over by the great ceremony and all the guests you have to have, as we've heard?
Yeah.
That it's not quite your day as it might have been?
Sarah's got 600 of the 720 guests.
What? It's very, very much my day. I'm marrying Andrew, and that's all there is about it. It is so much my day, because I'm going to be with him, and I'm doing it for him. I'm not doing it for the rest of the world. I'm very sad not to be getting married in Dunbar Village Church, but I'm equally so delighted to be getting married in the Abbey. Anywhere would do, whether it's Gretna Green, anywhere. I'm quite happy because I'm marrying Andrew. That's all that matters.
On their wedding day, the Queen conferred the title of Duke and Duchess of York on Andrew and Sarah. Andrew created a custom ring for his bride, consisting of an oval-cut Burmese ruby surrounded by 10 diamonds. The colour of the centre stone was reportedly to complement Sarah's red hair.
The wedding presents have been arriving by the hundred. The palace won't say exactly how many.
You can hear it now. It's a singing monkey. It's almost as bad as that singing birthday card I sent to Mother.
No. Andrew, what should we do with these?
Oh, must be kept for the children. Eventually.
On August the 8th, 1988, Sarah and Andrew welcomed their first daughter, Princess Beatrice, in London. 2 years later, they welcomed Princess Eugenie on March the 23rd, 1990. The girls were primarily raised at the Royal Lodge near Windsor Castle, offering them a private childhood outside London.
She made a special effort to chat to an 82-year-old lady who had waited outside the hospital for 2 weeks.
It's nice to see them. I love the babies.
Why do you follow them? Why do you like them so much?
I love the royal family. Nobody can say no wrong about them.
While the Duke was left holding the baby, the palace announced she would be called Eugenie Victoria Helena.
But Sarah and Andrew's relationship started to unravel early on. Despite raising Beatrice and Eugenie together, the couple were apart often. Andrew allegedly wasn't very present during Sarah's pregnancy with Beatrice, and only 2 weeks after the royal wedding, the royal family sent Andrew back out to sea. "I spent my entire first pregnancy alone," Sarah later told Harper's Bazaar of Andrew's absence. When Beatrice was born, Andrew got 10 days of shore leave. Prince Andrew's demanding naval career meant the couple only saw each other for roughly 40 days per year, a reality that she said was difficult for her to process and accept. She said, "I married my boy, who happened to be a prince and a sailor, because I love him and still do, my only condition being, I have to be with you." In August of that year, Sarah faced an explosive scandal as intimate photos taken of the Duchess with American businessman John Bryan were made public. The Duchess was on summer holiday at Balmoral Castle with the Queen, Prince Philip and Prince Andrew when the scandal broke. The Queen was reportedly mortified by the news, and Sarah returned to London that same day. Prince Philip's relationship with Sarah was also severely hurt by the scandal. Philip allegedly didn't even want to be in the same room as Sarah, insisting that she brought shame to the entire family.
I think it's almost time I should go, but never mind. Somebody's telling me it's time to go.
Although their divorce did not become official until 1996, Sarah was estranged from the royal family after her photo scandal in 1992. The Duchess was sensitive to allegations that she was holding out for a larger settlement, and later explained to Harper's Bazaar that she wasn't interested in money from the royal family. She simply wanted to be on good terms with her husband's family. When I met with Her Majesty about it, she asked, "What do you require, Sarah?" I said, "Your friendship," which I think amazed her because everyone said I would demand a big settlement. But I wanted to be able to say, Her Majesty is my friend, not fight her nor have lawyers saying, "Look, she is greedy."
The Duchess of York took Princess Beatrice to school as usual this morning, refusing to let the press interest in her marriage interrupt her daughter's routine. Followed by chasing newsmen, she delivered 3-year-old Beatrice to Upton House School in Windsor. She refused to answer questions from journalists as she left. Prince Andrew had spent the night at home with his family and left as usual for Sandhurst, where he's on a course with the Royal Military Academy.
Sarah would be allowed to use her Duchess of York title, but would be stripped of all other royal affiliations. She later admitted that she felt forced into agreeing to the divorce, stating that the dissolution of the marriage largely revolved around practical matters rather than irreconcilable differences between herself and Andrew. She added that she was interested in pursuing employment, something that you can't do as a member of the royal family. "I wanted to work. It's not right for a princess of the royal house to be commercial, so Andrew and I decided to make the divorce official so I could go off and get a job."
So, so this is where I live, not here, but down in Portland.
This is it. This is the environment within which you have to live.
There's a very good fish and chip shop down the road, so that'll be useful.
Where on earth did you find that out from? Have you been hunting this morning?
Yes.
Sort of thing that you've been sort of scouting around for various bits and pieces. But do you like it down here?
Well, you needn't cook then.
What? Thank you very much indeed.
You can live on fish and chips.
What an awful thought.
Yes, I do. I love it down here now. Well, only because Andrew, I want to be a good wife to you, and so therefore I will love it anywhere I go, as long as you like it and it's your career.
Ow! Just squeeze my fingers. Ow!
Kiss her then.
Why do you want me to kiss
you? Go on, hurry up.
Why?
Hurry up! Start filming, quick. Go on, dare you?
You're a monster. Oh God! Don't fall over the top of the wall.
Again, scandal and cheating drove a wedge between a potential fairy tale couple. But it doesn't always end in doom and gloom. After their divorce, Sarah and Andrew continued to make public appearances together, both with their daughters and on their own. In fact, Sarah reportedly still lives with Andrew at the Royal Lodge, and at a children's literature festival in 2013, Sarah said, "He's still my handsome prince. He'll always be my handsome prince."
I mean, I find that you just manage to go from one thing to the next, but I think we're both quite good at speaking. I mean, we do talk a lot, don't we?
As the daughter of the Queen of England, pressure to find a suitable partner was immense, a decision not to be taken lightly. There are many boxes a potential husband must tick before even considering pursuing a romantic relationship with a princess. After her first failed attempt at romance with Richard Meade, an Olympic equestrian who Anne had dated for a short period of time but was ended due to a 12-year age gap and the disapproval of her father, doubts about the perfect man even existing may have crossed the princess's mind. That was until she met Captain Mark Phillips.
When exactly, may I ask, did you decide that you were serious?
Anne and Mark met while attending a horse riding event in Mexico City. The pair shared a love for horse riding, which made it easy for them to get to know one another initially. Mark Anthony Peter Phillips was born in 1948 and followed in the footsteps of his family members by joining the military. He went to school at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst and pursued his education with a stint serving in the armed forces as a second lieutenant. If Anne was looking for a man who ticked boxes, she had found him in Phillips. Despite the spark between Anne and Mark, the young princess was still uncertain if she had found the perfect match. In 1970, Anne began a romantic relationship with Andrew Parker Bowles. Anne and Andrew began to grow closer as they spent more and more time with one another. This was made easier by the fact that the Parker Bowles family and the royal family had crossed paths for many years in the past. Andrew's father was said to have been a friend of the Queen Mother, so it wasn't much of a surprise to anyone when the pair began dating. But similarly to her first stab at love, outside factors wouldn't permit the couple from taking things any further. As a member of the royal family, following the rules and standards upheld by the church is vital. Parker Bowles was a Catholic, and so wasn't allowed to marry Anne, as the royal family is the head of the Church of England. After a short and prematurely ended run of love, the pair called it off and decided to remain friends. Andrew then went on to marry Camilla in 1973. Rather than continuing to look for new potential partners, Princess Anne decided to reignite the old flame with Captain Mark Phillips. In May of 1973, the same year that Andrew and Camilla wed, Anne announced her engagement to Mark. When it comes to royal weddings, the bride's gown and ring can often steal the show. Mark proposed to Anne with a sapphire ring in a gorgeous square-cut shape, which was framed with 2 diamonds on either side. There was much fanfare surrounding the wedding of Princess Anne and Captain Mark Phillips, who wed at Westminster Abbey on the 14th of November 1973. The only daughter of Queen Elizabeth II was the first of the 4 royal children to marry, and Anne happened to pick her brother, Prince Charles's 25th birthday, as her wedding date. However, Princess Anne did not enjoy publicity. The engaged couple was asked in an interview, "Do you think the marriage can withstand the enormous pressures of public duty and publicity that you have to endure?" The captain replied, "I think we've withstood a great deal already this year." And Anne quipped, "Can? It's got to, hasn't it?" The ceremony occurred at Westminster Abbey, and about 500 million people tuned in to watch Anne and Mark tie the knot. The event was so big that it turned into an 8-hour broadcast on the BBC, and as a result, November the 14th was declared a national holiday. The couple went on to have 2 children together, Peter and Zara, born in 1977 and 1981 respectively.
With the temperature just above freezing, Princess Anne came out, but instead of stopping on the steps for a moment for the large crowd, as she had promised, she just had a few quick words with the hospital staff. Nurse Zora Ahroff held Paddington Bear, a hospital mascot. 2-day-old Master Phillips was carried out by Sister Delphine Stevens, the midwife who was present at the birth. Well wrapped up against the cold, he was handed to the princess, who, ignoring normal advice, sat with her son in the front seat of the car.
Watch yourself now.
And off the couple went to Buckingham Palace for lunch. They'll be staying there until they move to their new home in Gloucestershire.
But sadly, all good things must come to an end. Slowly, the strain of reality began to kick in, and the weight of raising 2 children became undeniable for both of them. Resentment grew, and by the early 1980s, the couple had begun spending more and more time apart from one another. Mark began attending royal engagements less frequently, and they even began staying in different hotel rooms whenever they travelled outside of the UK. Anne stated that she had accepted being second in everything when it came to both matters of the public and personal sides of her life, as reported by her people. The breakdown of their marriage became more and more clear, not only to them, but to the public too. It was reported that neither of them was happy during their 18-year marriage. It was described as a loveless union just drifting along. While still married to Anne, Mark had a child with another woman. He began an affair with Heather Tonkin, an art teacher from New Zealand, who gave birth to their daughter Felicity in 1985.
Whilst the last few weeks have proved that royalty and the courts are an explosive mix.
Mark took a DNA test in 1991 to confirm his relation to the child, but that didn't prevent him from providing money for his child and her mother before the results were given. He hid the payments from Anne and the rest of the royal family by officially hiring Tonkin as a consultant relating to equestrian matters. He had reportedly been giving her $8,300 per year undetected. But as they say, all things done in the dark will eventually come to light. In 1991, Tonkin exposed Mark to the press as Mark had stalled on payments. She claimed that her goal was to have Mark publicly claim their daughter, and she also desired to list Mark on Felicity's birth certificate. Mark's agent, John Erskine, reportedly threatened Tonkin before she went public, saying, "I will make life a bloody misery for you." Mark also had semi-public affairs with Pamela Bordes, who was working as a call girl at the time. Phillips and Bordes had a love child together, and when details of their affair were publicly revealed, it was the last nail in the coffin of Anne's marriage. Rumours of alleged adultery weren't one-sided in this relationship, however. All blame can't be placed solely on Captain Mark Phillips. Anne was known to have her fun too. Detective Sergeant Peter Cross, a police officer who worked for Scotland Yard, was assigned to the Royal Protection Detail in 1979, eventually becoming Princess Anne's personal bodyguard for almost a year, which is when the rumours began to swirl of an illicit affair. According to Cross, Anne even had a pseudonym of Mrs. Wallace for when she contacted him. And when Scotland Yard reportedly caught wind of the conflict of interest, they removed him from his station with the royals, stating that he was becoming overly familiar with her. But this did not stop the two from allegedly continuing to see each other. According to Harry Arnold, the reporter who initially broke the story in The Sun, they carried out the affair until it became a public scandal, at which point Anne allegedly ended the relationship. Cross reportedly confirmed the story to Arnold a couple of years after the news broke. He apparently told him, "When you wrote that story, I was still married and I couldn't admit it. But yet it was true, and I can now tell you that it was true because I am now divorced." While Anne's marriage survived the scandal, she went on to fall for naval officer Commander Timothy Lawrence, her most public rumoured affair, and the man who would later become her second husband. Commander Timothy Lawrence was reportedly a favourite of the royal family, as he had joined the ranks of the palace entourage in 1986. He accompanied Queen Elizabeth during a number of notable engagements, including her visit with Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev. Anne appointed Lawrence as one of her personal advisors to her trust, a grand statement of trust and respect. A source close to Lawrence told the press, "The appointment just shows Anne's affection for him, and the feelings were definitely reciprocated." Another close source to him said he'd never stopped thinking about the princess after they met for the first time. Anne has considered him as her closest confidant for some considerable time. Obviously, Tim and the princess were attracted to each other, but their friendship goes deeper than that. He cares for her in the way her husband does not. It's unclear exactly when their affair started, but it ended up becoming a public matter when some of his love letters to the princess were stolen from the castle and scandalously released to the tabloids.
Many questions remain about the stolen letters. How were they taken from Buckingham Palace? Who stole them and what did they contain? The palace, the police and the media are all anxious for answers. Simon Marks, ITN at Buckingham Palace.
4 intimate letters that were written for Anne by Timothy were given to The Sun. They were reportedly stolen from the palace, but were meant to be for Anne's eyes only. To avoid facing legal retribution, The Sun handed the letters over to Scotland Yard, But that didn't deter them from publishing that they had the correspondence. The contents of the letter weren't leaked, but that didn't stop public curiosity. The palace eventually released a statement. "We have nothing to say about the contents of personal letters sent to Her Royal Highness by a friend, and which were stolen and which are the subject of a police investigation." As time went on, Anne and Mark Phillips lived separate lives, even taking turns travelling to avoid each other. The couple initially stated that they had no plans to get divorced and instead announced a simple separation in 1989. But that only lasted so long. They called it quits officially in 1992. As reported by the United Press International, the couple was granted a divorce after 18 years of marriage. This was the third failed marriage for the royal family that year alone. Anne was the one who officially requested the divorce, but it was widely noted at the time that the intent to divorce was mutual. It took the judge presiding over the case just 4 minutes to approve the divorce, and as such, the ex-couple went their separate ways. The story of Prince Charles and Princess Diana is possibly one of the most well-known royal tragedies in British history. It consists of adultery within the palace walls, lying and scheming, and even murder. This was a time when the crown was truly in crisis.
And next to Prince Charles and I can't go wrong. He's there with me.
In February of 1981, Prince Charles proposed to Diana at Windsor Castle, and of course, the love-struck princess said yes.
What about the proposal, Your Royal Highness? How did that come about?
Well, I asked Diana before she went to Australia, 2 or 3 days before, because I thought it'd be a good idea that, apart from anything else, if she went to Australia, she could then think about it, and if she didn't like the idea, she could say she didn't, or if she did, she could say that. But in fact, you actually said...
Yes, quite promptly.
Before you went to Australia?
Yes.
Cameras captured Diana at Balmoral, the royal family's private estate in the Scottish Highlands, and just like that, the secret of their relationship was officially out, and her life was changed forever. Prince Charles proposed to Diana at Windsor Castle in February 1981. However, both Diana and Charles expressed doubts about their relationship ahead of the wedding, despite the encouragement from friends and family.
Their relationship was, certainly a breaking point, and I think it'd been a breaking point almost from day one.
At that time, it said the couple had only gone out a dozen or so times. To make matters worse, Charles only proposed to Diana after receiving a memo from his father, Prince Philip. In the missive, Philip instructed his wayward son to either marry Diana or move on. To have withdrawn, as you can no doubt imagine, would have been cataclysmic, Charles reportedly said to a friend. Hence I was permanently between the devil and the deep blue sea. The couple formally announced their engagement to the world on February the 24th, 1981, and was met with nothing but joy and embrace from the British public. When a reporter asked Charles if they are in love, he famously replies,
Whatever in love means.
This was the first glance we got of the troubles brewing between these two, and they hadn't even wed yet. In March, Charles flew to Australia and New Zealand for 5 weeks, leaving his newly betrothed behind. She's spotted crying at Heathrow Airport upon his departure. However, her tears were not because she was sad about her fiancé leaving, as you'd expect, but instead because before he left, he had taken a phone call with Camilla Parker Bowles.
Even then, things were starting to unravel a bit, because I don't think it matched what Diana had expected. She had this vision of being like a fairy princess and being carried away into the sunset.
Camilla Parker Bowles is a name that would plague the marriage of Charles and Diana for years. And this was only the beginning.
Hello, good morning. Well, the big day has arrived. In 4 hours' time, Charles Philip Arthur George Mountbatten Windsor marries Diana Frances Spencer, and Britain and the world will celebrate the wedding of the Prince and Princess of Wales.
On the 29th of July, 1981, Prince Charles and Diana married in St. Paul's Cathedral. It was seen by a global television audience of 750 million in 74 countries, marking a high point in the popularity of the royal family. Prior to walking down the aisle, Diana expressed doubts about the wedding, especially after, it's said, she found a bracelet Charles made for Camilla. Also, the day before their wedding, Diana overheard Charles on the phone with his former girlfriend, Camilla Parker Bowles, revealing that he would always love her. This broke Diana, but her sister advised her that it was too late to call it off and she should go through with it. So she did. In June 1982, the couple welcomed their first child, Prince William. This was followed by a bout of postpartum depression for Diana. In 1995, she told the BBC, "You'd wake up in the morning feeling you didn't want to get out of bed. You felt misunderstood and just very, very low in yourself." Only a couple of years later, in September 1984, the couple's second child, Prince Harry, was born.
I think after Harry was born, the relationship seriously broke down. It was, it just hadn't worked out like both of them expected, and even before the wedding, Diana had serious doubts, and so did Charles. But it was too late, and her sisters famously said, "But Dutch," which was her nickname, "your face is on the tea towels." And it's a great line. I know it's been used a lot, but it does sum it all up. It's too late. And Charles's friends, his close friends, warned him, "This is not going to work, Charles. She's too young, she's too naive, and you're an imaginary prince. She doesn't know you at all." So it had very little chance. And then if you add that mix to the huge and unprecedented interest in the couple, well, especially in Diana, you can see it reach boiling point.
The couple were adored by the public. She was the people's princess, and he was the Prince of Wales. They had 2 newborn children for the nation to love, and all the riches one could ask for. Yet still, they were both deeply unhappy in their marriage.
I think by and large, the national press were very good to Diana in their reporting.
Well, Charles was so used to having all the attention on him, which it had been since he was born. He didn't like the idea that they walked down a street, say when they were doing a royal engagement, and the crowd were calling "Diana, Diana." So he felt surplus and didn't really know what to do with himself, and made lots of sort of rather pathetic remarks like, "There should be 2 of me, and if I cut myself in half." I mean, he didn't know what to do or say, and yes, it was a form of jealousy, yes, it was.
When neither of them could find love within their own households, they began looking elsewhere for affection. It was now 1985, and Princess Diana needed a new bodyguard, as her Chief Inspector Graham Smith was leaving his post. But what kind of man do you cast to guard a beautiful and unhappy young princess? Someone very strong, very sane, and very married. Someone who could steer her out of trouble. Enter Sergeant Barry Manicky, former police dog handler who had been working at the Royalty and Diplomatic Protection Group since 1983. In April 1985, 37-year-old Manaki was assigned to watch over Diana. Manaki came into Diana's life at a time when she was feeling vulnerable. The mother of two was still trying to live within the chafing confines of her marriage, but increasingly unwilling to give up on her need for love.
By the way.
Thank you.
Diana detailed her feelings for Manaki in private recordings with her voice coach, Peter Setterlin. In the tapes, which were released following Diana's death, the princess described the bodyguard as the greatest love she'd ever had. According to Diana, she'd have been quite happy to give all this up and just go off and live with him. And he kept saying he thought it was a good idea too. But sadly, this fleeting romance came to an abrupt end. On May the 22nd, 1987, Manaki, then 39, was struck by a 17-year-old inexperienced driver while he was riding a motorcycle. Diana heard the news while she was arriving at the Cannes Film Festival and was devastated. Diana stated that it was the biggest blow of her life. I just sat there all day going through this huge high-profile visit to Cannes, thousands of press, just devastated. Because, you know, I wasn't supposed to mind as much as I did, if you know what I mean. But Diana's quest for love didn't stop there. Both Charles and Diana engaged in extramarital affairs. Charles told his official biographer, Jonathan Dimbleby, that he picked things back up with Camilla Parker Bowles in 1986.
Well, Charles was in love with Camilla from a very early age. You know, when he was still in the Navy, he fell in love with Camilla. She was funny, she was a great rider, and she made him laugh. And I think that Camilla has this, she's very, very attractive to both men and women because of her personality. She's got a wonderful personality.
Meanwhile, it's alleged that Diana's affair with Army Captain James Hewitt started around a similar time. The moment that would ultimately launch Hewitt into the public consciousness came in 1986, when the officer met Princess Diana at a party thrown by her lady-in-waiting, Hazel West. Princess Diana's Royal Protection Officer, Ken Worf, wrote in his book, Diana, Closely Guarded Secret. He told her he was a riding instructor and, when she confessed she was afraid of horses, offered to help her overcome her fear. Not long after he became Diana's riding instructor, the two became romantically involved, an arrangement that would last for several years.
It was difficult for me to tread the path between Prince Charles and Princess Diana. Now, Diana arrived every weekend with the boys on Friday afternoon and left every Sunday. But someone else occupied that space in between. And I learned to serve two royal mistresses. One, Princess of Wales, and the other, Mrs. Parker Bowles. This was still a secret. I was keeping this secret from both the prince and the princess, until, of course, it became intolerable.
Well, Camilla lived near Charles at Highgrove, and Charles used to see her on Sundays. So when Diana drove back to London, to Kensington Palace, Charles would be out at the other end of the drive, driving off to Camilla's house, or she would be coming to Highgrove. And Diana knew perfectly well this was happening. So that they sort of had Sundays for Camilla.
The princess's marriage to Prince Charles was known to be rocky by the time she met Hewitt, and Charles was reportedly too busy carrying on his own liaison with his former girlfriend Camilla to care.
I think Diana was terrified. She says she was. And she looked for Charles. She was looking. They went to Annabel Goldsmith's house, beautiful house in Richmond, and it was a big party on probably on 3 or 4 floors, and she looked around, where's Charles, where's Charles? And then she realised that he must be downstairs on the lower level in the sort of basement area. not a basement like we know, but a very glamorous downstairs rooms. And she went down there, and there they were. Then she decided, and then, you know, she obviously got this real anger, because you'd have to be very angry to do that, and brave. And she just confronted Camilla and said, you know, I'm not stupid, I know what's going on. So Camilla must have been completely taken aback. I mean, you don't expect that to happen.
Hewitt revealed in the 1999 book Love and War that only one thing went wrong. We fell in love.
Diana was shaking with fear and rage. And on the way back in the car, she was just in hysterical tears. And her protection officer, Ken Worf, was with her, and so he confirms all this, that she just sobbed all the way home, and I don't think Charles said a word.
The People's Princess reportedly had her fair share of fleeting affairs, but there was only one man she fell head over heels for. Hasnat Khan, a 36-year-old Pakistani heart surgeon. It was love at first sight for Diana when she met Dr. Khan for the first time in 1995 at the Royal Brompton Hospital. He was treating her healer, Una Shanley Toffolo's husband, who had suffered a massive hemorrhage during his triple bypass operation. After Khan left the room, she squealed like a schoolgirl to Una over the doctor's gorgeous looks and caring eyes. I found my peace, Diana later confessed to one of her confidants after they started dating. He has given me all the things I need. She even had a nickname for him, Natty.
Towards the end of her life, of course, she found her soulmate. Her soulmate was Hasnat Khan.
Diana and Khan would often have sleepovers in his small overnight room at the hospital after one of his late-night shifts. But she'd always make sure she returned to the palace at dawn before any of the staff noticed her absence. The Sunday Mirror was one of the first publications to ignite the rumour mill on their relationship. In an effort to do damage control and keep their romance out of the spotlight, a panicked Diana called up a reporter at the Daily Mail to tell him that the Mirror's story was completely fabricated. She even said that she and her friends were in laughing fits over the preposterous lies. The counter-story may have saved them in the public eye, but it created a major rift between the couple behind closed doors. He was equally hurt by both her silly, convoluted denial and the story itself. As if the humiliation wasn't bad enough, he also began receiving racist threats in the mail.
There could be several people here tonight who will reach a state of mental imbalance in the next year or so.
The endless drama forced Khan to give her the cold shoulder for 3 weeks. The next few years see Charles and Diana plagued with rumours of marital trouble. In 1987, Diana didn't join Charles on the family's annual summer trip to Balmoral, leading press headlines to spew a royal break. During several public appearances, they seemed distant and unhappy. In a 1988 Vanity Fair story, reporter Georgina Howell found this. She was the love object of everyone in the world except her husband. She was faced in her mid-20s with something she found chilling to contemplate. A fairy tale marriage that had cooled into an arrangement.
All she was ever looking for was to be loved. She used to say to me, all I ever want, Paul, is a man to put their arms around me and say, I love you. That's not too much to ask, is it? And that's what she was searching for.
In December 1992, Prime Minister John Major announced to the House of Commons that the Prince and Princess of Wales were separating.
That the Waleses were a very unhappy couple, in contrast to the hopes expressed when they became engaged. Charles said at that time he was surprised she was willing to put up with him. So, were they in love?
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
The palace tells reporters that no third party was involved in the decision, all despite tabloid reports and Morton's book.
I think they were both very sad. Diana in particular never wanted to get divorced. In her heart, although she was with another man, Charles was the one that got away, and she always had a place in her heart for Charles. And it wasn't what she wanted, and she felt a failure. They both felt they'd failed. And they both felt they'd failed their children, so it was very, very sad for both of them.
The drama threw the monarchy into deep turmoil. The news of the separation comes at a time when the credibility of the monarchy is at a modern low point as a result of persistent reports alluding to the marital scandals and wealthy lifestyle of some members of the royal family. The New York Times commented on the announcement. In a 1995 interview with the BBC, Diana said that she felt deep, profound sadness about their decision. We had struggled to keep it going, but obviously we'd both run out of steam. Finally, on August the 28th, 1996, after coming to an agreement in July, Prince Charles and Princess Diana's divorce was finalised.
In today's Sunday Times, it's claimed that he's had 3 separate affairs with Camilla Parker Bowles.
I think Charles did become very villainized. And in a way, Charles is still being villainized by the ghost of Diana, because there's so many programs and musicals and stories, and we still have Harry's book to come out. So everything always, the finger of blame is always pointed at Prince Charles, and I think that is very unfair, because Diana would hate that. She would really hate that, because towards the very end of her life, because I talked to her very shortly before she was killed, she said, that she wanted her boys to know that she had loved Prince Charles, and in a way they still loved each other. She was getting on with him so much better. And she'd even stopped blaming Camilla, which was a revelation to me. That's about the different Dianas. And she said it wasn't so much Camilla, it was the people around us. So I thought, that's really interesting. For 20 years you blame Camilla, and now you're blaming the royal household. Interesting, but of course, we never really delved into that enough.
Diana received a significant financial settlement, but was stripped of her Royal Highness status.
From that moment on, Diana was powerless. Her titles were stripped. She was no longer prayed for in church. She was on her own.
Tragically, her new, liberated post-royal life was cut short after a fatal car crash in Paris a year later.